The leads that are coming in just aren't strong enough leads. They're not the right type of leads. They're not qualified, whatever it is. Or is it all of that's great, but I haven't warmed them up enough? Really is trying to move people from interested to buy now versus understanding what that buyer's journey is really going to go through. So you've had some sort of initial interaction, yet they're falling off before they show up to the free event. Predominantly, it sounds like a lot of the follow-up has to do with we just don't know enough about them yet. We've maybe had a short little conversation, but there hasn't been true discovery where we've found. Welcome on this episode of the Ownership Advantage. We want to do something a little bit differently, and it is all framed around this thing that we just did last week, which was called Growth Club, which is our quarterly planning event that we do with a lot of our clients. But why I bring this up is when we went through that, we actually have all of our clients sit down and write down what were some of the top challenges or frustrations they had in their business over the last quarter. And then we go through lessons and some wins and things like that. But it was really eye-opening to see some of the challenges that were common among everybody else. So there was, 30-ish different sticky notes that were all put up on the board with these different challenges and things like that. And there was one that stood out probably more than all the rest. In one way, shape, or form, it had to do with how do I improve this ability in my sales pipeline? Like how do I, for some of them it was I'm not qualifying leads very well. For others is I wasn't hitting revenue targets. It was I was selling too much of the wrong thing. Like there's this fall off between getting leads kind of in the door and actually being able to close them in multiple different areas within there. So we felt that it would be really good to have a conversation today on that topic, which is really how to fix a broken sales pipeline and some of the methods and things like that to do that. So that is going to be the general topic for today's discussion.
Oh, Tanner, this is a good one, especially being at that event. Also, just like my mind has been thinking a lot about this very topic. And, I was kind of curious about like, why do most people have an issue with their sales pipeline? Because I know I have some struggles there, and other people, it sounds like, do too.
Yeah. I think there's a couple different ways to answer it. I traditionally find, going back to one of my key tenets, which is really understanding the numbers and what's happening within the business. But it's oftentimes it falls back to there's not enough visibility into what's actually happening. And oftentimes a problem that isn't a problem is the one that's trying to be solved, and the problem that actually is a problem is hasn't been identified yet. And what I mean by this is, there might be one spot in the pipeline. Is it, the leads that are coming in just aren't strong enough leads. They're not the right type of leads. They're not qualified, whatever it is. Or is it all of that's great, but I haven't warmed them up enough, or I haven't provided them enough value yet, or all of that's good, but I just don't know how to sell once I get to the end of it, right? So it could be a visibility issue. I think more often than not, it's I don't know where the problem actually is in the pipeline. But outside of that, I think there's something that tends to come up fairly frequently, and that it really is trying to move people from interested to buy now versus understanding what that buyer's journey is really going to go through. And this is going to be different depending on what we're selling. If it's a higher ticket, higher relationship type of a deal, the buyer's journey is very different than a low ticket, quick consumable type of a product. But understanding that and knowing that we can't just go from now they maybe kind of know something about us to, hey, you need to buy this right now. There's something that happens in between, and not trying to shove them all the way down at the end of this sales pipeline.
That makes a lot of sense, because I definitely can feel like, say I meet, in my case, it's an artist who I want to join my course to help their music career. And like, I think where I'm falling off is I know the backside of my business like so well, but introducing that to someone new, especially if we're trying to sell it, I think that's where I'm getting stuck is how do I speak their language better? How do I meet them where they're at from their perspective, not someone who's been in this for 2 years?
Yeah, that's a really important piece, and I like to frame it as like a bridge of where are they today versus where do you want them to go, and how long is that bridge? For some people, the bridge is going to be a little bit shorter. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to share with y'all just a kind of a quick methodology to think about how to structure or set up a sales pipeline, and it's going to use this acronym called CLEAR, CLEAR. So it starts with the C, which is capture and qualify. So this is that first part of the phase where we're starting to just create awareness. We're getting people, names on a list, essentially is what that is. They're getting awareness of who we are, maybe what the problem is that we solve. Then we get to the L, which is lead warm-up. This is where we're starting to provide kind of some value, some exploration type material. It's sending nurture emails, some videos before your initial calls, different things like that. The E, so CLE now in CLEAR, E is educate to elevate. This is what I call the consideration phase. This is where you've got leads that maybe are unsure if you're the right fit. So we're spending some time sharing social proof, showing the cost of inaction if they don't buy or do different things like that, and your overall value stack. So there's different things that kind of come into this piece here. The A in this framework is ask with clarity. So oftentimes, this is really the bottom piece where maybe everything else is good, but the sales conversation feels a bit awkward, and it's not clear what that next step should be or why they should be taking the next step. So making that clear offer and making it a singular clear offer. We're not asking them to take 5 different steps today. We're solving one simple singular problem for them. So that's the A, ask with clarity. And then we kind of finish it off with the R, which is repeatable follow-up, which is really in that decision phase. If we don't get them there in the first meeting, things like that, what is the follow-up? And this is a big piece that a lot of newer business owners traditionally miss, is once that sales meeting is done, that doesn't mean that we've lost them forever. There's things that can happen after that. So clear, capture and qualify, lead warm-up, educate to elevate, ask with clarity, and then repeatable follow-up. So when we're looking at your particular example, where do you feel the biggest drop-off is? Is it from getting people onto the list and then warming them up, or do you think it's something a little bit further down the line? Help me kind of diagnose where you're feeling this frustration today.
Ooh, this is a great question. And I think most of mine I'm seeing, because I offer a freebie course, right? It's like an hour and a half. So I've had quite a bit of fall off before that course. Not a ton. I think I haven't been doing it very long, so I want to develop those numbers a little more. But I'm seeing it there, and then also helping to educate those that are kind of on the fence after that free course of the value. Like there's some that are like, they know me, they're ready for it. We've had discussions, even as friends or acquaintances. But it's these folks that are like kind of unsure of what Amplify EDM is. Like, I don't know if I trust this, but they see some value there. So I think that's my main struggle, is like those folks who could be a good fit, but are a little bit harder to like get them to understand.
Okay, so if I heard correctly, it sounds like there's kind of 2 different pieces in there. The first one is maybe initial interaction of some sort. Maybe that's a conversation with you before the free thing. Maybe it's some other type of two-way communication, things like that. So there's something going on there, and then those that are kind of on the fence but haven't really taken the next step yet. What does that look like? So I would actually say that these probably fall. The first one being more that exploration phase, which is going to fit into the lead warm-up piece, and then the second one being a little bit more in the consideration phase. They're maybe not completely down to decision yet, but they're in consideration, and there is that kind of educate and elevate that we need to do. So let's take the first one first, because I think this is a really good example for many that may be listening to this. So you've had some sort of initial interaction, yet they're falling off before they show up to the free event. My first question would be, what do you know about these leads? What questions have you asked? How much information do you have on these leads before that moment where they do fall off?
Oh, this is where I notice some inconsistencies on my end because of how, say, I meet them. Sometimes it's a quick conversation. I run into somebody and strike up a conversation about what I do at an event, and they're interested. But then they get on the email, and then they have the invite to the free event. And then other times there's more prep work, I would say. Like they would either hop on a call one-on-one with me to talk, and those seem to go a bit better. But I think I'm losing the folks that it's like an elevator pitch, or a situation where they may know of what I do but may not, and I don't get that time to really say, hey, let's hop on a call and then maybe get them into the free course. I'm not sure which one to go with. It takes more time, but that might be the way I have to go.
So it's a really good piece. So predominantly, it sounds like a lot of the follow-up has to do with we just don't know enough about them yet. We've maybe had a short little conversation, but there hasn't been true discovery where we've found kind of their needs and their wants and their desires, where we can start to specifically speak to what value they're going to gain from coming to the free thing, right? So we've captured, but we haven't even really been able to qualify yet. So I think there's a couple different ways to think about this. The first one is, if we're properly capturing it, we have to at least make sure that we've got contact information for them. So we've got name, email, phone number, some way to continue to communicate with them, and adding them into the database. So they're aware of what it is that you do, with the problem that you solve, to a degree. Maybe it's enough, maybe it's not. But we do need to start warming them up, which is that exploration phase. We need to keep them in this exploration phase. So my first thing would be, is there a way for us to continue to get additional discovery out of them so we can speak in the language that matters to them? So a one-to-one call is a great way to do this, because you can get in, you can start asking them questions in a very fun and caring way that's going to pull some different things out of them. Even if they don't take the next step, you know more about your audience to be able to send the right messages out there and provide them value along the way. So that could be a way. Now, I know there's a few other ways where you can use online assessments or quizzes, or fill out this quick little questionnaire just to see if it's even a good fit for you, if there's something that we can send you in the meantime. But oftentimes we just need to do more nurturing and like video content and things like that, so they're more comfortable and more familiar. They have a surface level of what it is that they thought you do, but maybe they just haven't learned enough yet. If we've properly captured their contact information, now we can start sending them information. Now, there's different ways to do this. Obviously, there's the tried and true emails, right? We've got an email, so we can now send them emails. So they get put into a 6 or 7 email sequence that's in order, that warms them up to the idea and shows the problems that can be solved and how it may relate to them. And then they can self-identify that that's something that they want to continue to move forward on. Another way to do this, and this one does take a little bit more financial resources, doesn't necessarily need to take a lot, but as your list continues to grow, or as a list continues to grow, if you're listening to this, it gives you the ability to do some remarketing. So if I now have a list of thousands of people on my database, I can upload that into something like Facebook and start running ads specifically to them, but not necessarily an ad to get them to take another step or book in a time or something else. Like, you can do that, but you can also just ensure that your content is in front of them as much as possible, and it's just you talking about the things that are amazing about the success stories and problems that were solved and different things like that. But now they're seeing it all the time, so they're warming up to this idea before you ever even make an ask.
Ooh, I'm taking notes, by the way, as we're going through this, because you've hit on some golden nuggets that I think will be super helpful. It's just understanding, almost like looking at how I buy, like, how do I want to be spoken to? And a lot of times, like, I like when someone reaches back out after an initial meeting and says, hey, let's hop on a call, let's grab a coffee, let's check out this questionnaire, we might find this interesting, there's some valuable nuggets in here, or a link to a podcast, something to keep them engaged. So yeah, I feel that really would be something that would help nurture those folks who are just kind of like, I don't know if I need this, but they've really might be a great client.
Yeah. And I think this is the key point, though, especially when we're looking at the two different areas that you articulated, and we look at kind of going through this sales framework. When we build the pipeline, this goes back to why there's so much fall off and breakdown and things like that, is we forget where these people are in their journey. So this particular cohort, we don't know enough about them yet. We're not educating them on all of the cool things that we do that are very, very, very specific. We're helping them understand what the overall theme is. What is it that you do holistically, getting that awareness there first, warming them up to the idea so that when you get into a deeper discovery, which probably happens at the free event and some one-to-one calls and things like that, that's where now we can shift it, and our content shifts based on what they've gone through and where they're at in this bridge. So they just went from, I have no idea who you are, what you do, or even that I even might have a problem. I guess I kind of felt some pain, but never was able to put any words to it. And they've come just a little bit further on now, because now they've had a little bit of a conversation with you, short interaction, that sort of thing. But they haven't fully articulated yet that, yeah, I do have a problem. They're still identifying that piece, let alone that you can be the one that can solve it. So all of the information, the content, the things like that they need to see is just helping them identify that first part of it. Then we get to the next piece. Is like, all right, here's all the people that are on the fence. They haven't made a decision yet. They're a little bit beyond the exploration phase, or really that lead warm up, and they've started into this educate and elevate, which is really the part where I call it consideration. They're getting to the point where I think I'm going to make a decision. I just haven't made a decision yet. So I'm in kind of this consideration phase. This level of educate and elevate, it's different, right? So it's still videos and different things like that, emails, etc., but less on the overall and more on the, I'm going to now send very specific social proof. You said you wanted these specific results, so I'm going to send you 3 testimonials from clients who said they wanted that exact result. It's the cost of inaction. I love this one. Being able to specifically identify, here's the thing that you're doing today, here's the thing you're not doing today, here's the thing that you could be doing, and if you keep doing the thing you're doing today, and you actually label that for them so they can have it click right in their brain, and you can put a dollar amount behind it saying, if you do this or continue to do this instead of this thing over here, it's going to cost you X dollars. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a very different game. If you try to do that over here where they haven't identified a problem yet or really clarified what the problem is that they have or can put words to it, it's just not going to resonate. Like it's going to go right over their head because they haven't kind of come forward on that journey yet to be able to understand that they're ready for this next piece. So the highlight here is to understand that the content, while the purpose is the same, we're still educating and helping warm them up to the next phase in their journey. But because they're in different parts of the journey, that content has to be different.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I know that is exactly where I've been struggling, because I'm just kind of sending out the same content to everyone and not thinking deeper on it. So this is gives me a lot of clarity of how I can create different types of content for different types of leads that are coming in.
Yeah. Up here, invite them into your world. Down here, help solve their very specific articulated problem. If we take this all the way back to some of the Post-it notes that we saw last week and the challenges that people are facing within this, I had mentioned people trying to jam people in down at this bottom part of the funnel, or the further on the buyer's journey. It tends to be, hey, I met somebody, I got a name, they don't know much yet, but I'm going to start trying to solve a problem that I don't even know what they have yet. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them all the way over here at this point in the process. Or you flip it. I've got somebody who just typed into Google, I'm looking for XYZ service because I have a problem that I can already articulate and I need solved today. They're ready for this next step down here, right? That is intent. They are further on that buyer's journey. And if we start saying to them, well, I just want to invite you into my world and I want to show you all this amazing stuff, but I don't actually want to solve your problem yet, they're going to go to your competitor because they needed something solved today.
Yeah.
So understanding, where are they at in their journey and being able to ask a few questions to figure out what that intent is gives you a lot of tools to be able to say, how do I help them make the decision that's best for them based on where they are today?
Yes, absolutely love that. And, just for like example, I'd love to dive a little deeper and ask, what are some of those good questions? Like, I'd love to just write them down right now. What are some good questions to kind of gauge where folks are at in their journey?
That is a really good question, which I think depends on a little bit of context. So if I'm just meeting someone initially, my goal would be to get them to just talk a little bit about what's going on with them right now. I'd be looking for threads that I can pull. So if I were to be sitting down with you today, Kay, and said, tell me a little bit about what's going on in your business today. Obviously, this is a business-to-business type thing, so I'm going to ask more business-to-business related type questions. So, hey, you agreed to sit down. We're having this first conversation, assuming this is one step beyond just meeting at a networking event or something else like that. We're actually sitting down. Tell me a little bit about what you do and some of the things that you're excited for in this next week. I'd let you kind of start to answer those questions. Depending on how you answer it, we can start to dig into different questions from there. Ultimately, I'm going to start digging enough that I can find where is their heightened emotion. So if I ask a question around, where are you taking the business long term, or what are some of the things that you're excited to grow into? If you answer it with, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be able to do this thing over here, and I'm going to be a $20 million business, and we're going to have this many employees, and it's just absolutely amazing. I can't believe all the amazing impact I'm going to have for people. Okay, well, I can tell there's emotion there. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'd tackle into, and I'd want to know a little bit more about that. Now, if you answered it with, I don't know. I think I'd really like to achieve this, but there's all these things going on in the world, and we start to kind of deflect to different things. I'd want to know a little bit more about that, and I'd probably start to peel back on what's going on in your world that's allowing that to be a barrier for you. And ultimately just starting to stack it into, do I know enough to get to the core issue of what is the real thing that's getting in the way? And is the thing that I have, the service, the product, whatever, something that can provide a solution to that? And if so, we're just going to start navigating some of these questions into that realm.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I know they didn't actually answer the question in terms of here's specific questions to ask, but I think it's so nuanced depending on who you're talking to and what actually matters to them. I am way more interested in listening to what they have to say and asking questions based on that versus having here's my core set of 6 questions or 8 questions or 10 questions, and I'm going to ask those no matter what. Now, there are some core tenets. I want to know that they've got the budget to make a decision ultimately. Now, we may be able to get to that in the first conversation. We may not. It just depends on your buyer's journey and where they're at. I want to know that they have the authority to make a decision. I want to ensure that there actually is a need, and I want to know that it's relevant to them today. The question sets to get to those core things are going to be very dependent on who we're talking to, what the thing is that we're selling, and really where they're at in the buyer's journey. And can I go real deep and ask hard questions right off the bat, or do I have to start with some easier things and build rapport first?
That makes a lot of sense. It does go back to active listening and really hearing what the person you're talking to has to say, and where you can find those, like you said, those things to pull into more and dive a little deeper.
Yeah, I really take it back because this is all sales technique. Mm-hmm. And there's a tremendous amount of people, if you want to go and take some lessons on sales, watch some masters at kind of the sales process and things like that. But at the end of the day, I've always enjoyed the understanding that what sales really is professionally helping others to make a buying decision. Helping them, guiding them to the decision that is best for them to solve the problem that they have.
Yes.
My goal is to solve that with you. And if I can't, that's fine. But I can't sit here and say, you have to buy this thing because I think it's the best. No, you have to decide that it's the best. How do I help you make that decision?
Yes. I think that's such a healthy mindset too for people like myself who do struggle sometimes with when and how to sell to who. And so this has been extremely clarifying for just understanding, okay, these folks are new to me. And it's just like, kind of like I always say, like going out on a date. Like you wouldn't throw it all out on the table right away and be like, this is my full life story. I've had that happen. It doesn't work out very well. But it's like that with thinking about when you're meeting somebody, how would you act? How would you treat them? How, when you're building any type of relationship, including a client relationship. So yeah, I think this is great. It really helped me clarify, you know, honing in on where they're at in the journey.
Yeah, and I love that you use the example of if I was dating, this is what it would look like. A buddy of mine and the founder of Action Coach, Brad Sugars, and a buddy of mine, Josh, over in the UK, they co-wrote a book called Raise Your Hand Marketing, and a big premise of that book was really understanding that you don't go into your first date and ask for marriage, but yet that's what most people do in the marketing and sales world. They just come in, they start asking for marriage right away. It's like, whoa, I don't even know who you are. Let's start with just hello, right? There's something else that was missed along the process, and likely it's a initial conversation. Maybe let's go for a coffee. Okay, maybe we'll go on an actual date, and there's multiple steps. Now, if you had somebody that's coming up to you like, I'd like to find my mate, and if you're also interested in that, we can go right to this bottom part of the funnel. But how often does that happen, right? So I really liked that analogy with it. But if we bring this all the way back to what's the core thing that the listeners can kind of take away from this in terms of the challenge that a lot of even our clients have faced, is that there's a broken sales pipeline because we just haven't thought about it enough to kind of understand where people are at. So I think the framework of using the clear pipeline method, CLEAR, where are they at? Are we capturing and qualifying them? Have we warmed those leads up, that lead warm-up phase? Have we educated them in order to elevate them through the process? Are we asking with clarity? When we get down to the point, are we actually solving the problem, making an offer based on what they've actually told us? Like, here's the one thing to solve that one problem. If we're ambiguous about it, it's hard to make the next step. And then finally, the R, repeatable follow-up process. Do we have follow-up in place? Because it is important to understand if they've gone all the way through this sales process and you've gotten them down to a sales meeting and everything, you should have so much information about these people that you can effectively provide them value based on what they've actually told you. So your follow-up process isn't generic. It's not just 3 months down the road saying, hey, just following up. Like, no, hey, you had talked about this one very specific problem. Is that still a challenge that you're facing today? If not, I'd love to send this one thing over to you. Or I just saw this blog article the other day. It was on this topic we were talking about the other week. Thought you might enjoy it, right? That's a very different follow-up process. So clear method here, which also is awareness, exploration, consideration, and ultimately decision. To bring it to a close, that's a lot of information, though. I imagine, Kay, if you're looking at this and you're listening to this on the outside, to be like, that's awesome. How do I implement this? Because there's so many different phases to it. So I'm going to ask all of you to take 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, sometime this week, and I want you to choose one of these 5 areas and just make one small improvement. So for some of you, you're going to choose capture at first stage. And I want you to just add one qualifying question to your form, your question set, whatever that looks like. Just add one question. If there was one answer you could get to know if somebody's a qualified lead, what would that be? And what would the question have to be to be able to answer that? Just add that to the process. If you're feeling the lead warm-up is the area that you need to spend a little bit more time on, I want you to put together a pre-call video or some level of testimonial that can warm up the lead to understand what it is that you solve. If it's the educate piece, create a one-page, is this right for you document that you can send out to them so they can just quickly check the box on if it's something that makes sense for them. Ask, if it's that last piece of asking with clarity. Work on rewriting your offer and have one clear promise. And if it's the final one, the follow-up, the repeatable follow-up, then build a 3-step email or text sequence that you can send out. There's some amazing tools for this. You can use ChatGPT. I know there's some other tools where you can literally or just fill in some drop downs, things like that, and it will write an email sequence for you. If that's something you're interested in, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you find. But I want you to just pick one of those. Pick one of those and add that into your process. No more than 20 minutes, work on it this week. So you've got something that is a quick win from coming from this conversation today.
Oh, those are great, Tanner. I'm super excited to choose which one most resonates with me and take that time to just really dive a little deeper into my sales funnel and how it's functioning. So I really appreciate this conversation. This was wonderful.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that have made it all the way to the end and you're still listening, I've got a gift for you. The gift here is 2 weeks of free coaching with one of the amazing coaches here on the Action Coach team. If you're listening to this and you're like, Tanner, I really want to know how to implement this stuff, but I need an accountability partner who's going to hold me to achieving these things, then this 2-week free process is for you. I will put the link and everything in the description below. Go ahead and click it, secure your time, and we'll make sure that you've got 4 full meetings with a coach to be able to identify and put these things into practice. Worst case scenario, you're going to walk away with a load of a plan and strategy and watch your business grow as a result.